the issue of board members, but I want to thank all of my board members. If you would raise your hand, for your continued service, your friendship and support. It means a great deal to me. And also now, there was a question about membership dues. And Kenneth, I believe, asked it. So I will tell you that we have not decided what we're going to do yet because we don't know how much membership we have. And until we resume live classes, we won't be able to figure out what a quorum is anyway. So it's a moot point, as we will continue to do Zoom classes through this entire year. Two every month, and they will continue to be free. One more thing before I turn the meeting over, or we get a poll going initially, is that the next meeting on March 19th, we will be in Eastern Daylight Time. Next week, Sunday, March 14th at 2 a.m., we turn all the clocks ahead or move them ahead 1 hour as daylight savings time begins and Eastern Standard Time ends. So next Saturday night, remember to move all of your clocks ahead 1 hour. You're going to lose that hour's sleep. Okay, are there any further questions? Hearing none, we're going to put up a poll now. Is that all right, Carol?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So in advance of Ron's presentation about all of the things that we may be experiencing with problems with Wi-Fi. And Barry, for some reason, there's an echo now, and I don't know why. We'd like you please to go through and answer each of these questions so that we have some idea of what you're currently experiencing with your Wi-Fi and what you're using to try to, what you've already tried to make it better. And you'll notice on the second question, it says, got something else, please specify. If you want to specify something, you can do it in the chat area. You need to go down to the lower menu on your Zoom screen and open. You'll see something that says chat, either right on the Zoom taskbar or on the 3-dot more. Open the chat, and then you can type something in the lower space. So please go ahead and answer the questions. We'll give you a minute or two to do that.
Are there only 2 questions? And if there are...
No, scroll down. There are actually 4 questions.
If there's nothing wrong with the speed, number 2, that's good to move forward to 3. How do you do that?
Scroll down to the 3rd question and just go ahead and answer it.
Come on.
It's not. You
It's
have
not.
to.
It isn't
It's not-
scrolling down.
It's not scrolling down.
Well, that's interesting.
No, it's not going any further than 2/4.
Yeah.
Mine isn't allowing me to submit it.
Mine
filled it in.
scrolled down.
The bar.
Don't submit. Now I can see the submit, but I click on it and nothing happens.
You have
If
to
you don't
manually-
answer
That's my
question,
system.
if you don't answer question 2, you can't submit. And if you have no problems, there's no way to answer question 2.
Aha. So just click on got something else and go ahead and proceed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Getting interesting
Who
here.
knew?
Hello, Irv. I see you've joined in.
Okay, we're going to give another
Good
minute.
morning.
Morning, Irv. We're going to give another minute or two. 15 people have responded so far.
Yeah, I've submitted mine already.
Carol, I'm sorry, I got a question here. I've got on on my screen, I've got like mostly the results percentage wise, and there's nothing I can click on that seems to make any difference. Am I
Oh,
doing this incorrectly?
that's because you're a co-host. So,
Oh, well, then never mind.
Co-hosts cannot participate or hosts.
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. One more sec. All right. Barry, did you just do something?
No,
No. Okay. So I'm going to share.
I'm ready to share the, you're going to share them. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So let's see what the results are. Okay, so here are the results. Interesting. So 11 people, more than half, said they're not having any problem. We've got 5 people who are. 5 people have called their Wi-Fi provider if they are having problems. 1 person upgraded. 3 people got a new router. Nobody's put any comments in the chat, so we don't know what else. We've got 1 person with a hotspot and 1 person who wonders what a hotspot is. And we've got 6 people who have 1 to 3 devices going at a time, 8 that have 4 to 6, which is quite a lot, and 2 7 to 10, and 1 person with more than 10. I would bet that would have been Don, but he can't respond. Okay,
Yep.
so
No,
we're gonna.
that was me.
It's also done.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Okay, so we stopped sharing, and we'll take that away. We'll close that. Okay. So now do you want to introduce Ron and let him carry it away?
Okay. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our resident physician, who is well known to all of us from the Tech for Senior that he runs on Mondays where Bob is there and Huey Poplock is there and Dewey Cluse is there. I highly recommend that you sign up for their newsletter and everything. You can go to Tech for Senior. We have it on our useful links page at the bottom under the senior column. And Ron is going to amplify or discuss what those items were in the poll. So Ron, anytime you're ready to go, share your screen.
All right, thank you. You can hear me okay?
Yep, you're great.
All right, can we mute everyone? I'm going to mute everybody just before we start. Is that all right? And if you want to unmute yourself, just hit the space bar to unmute. We'll, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you a short video I made, and then I'm going to answer any questions. I expect there'll be lots of questions. I have some further comments that I made based on the poll you had. And so we'll talk a little bit about that afterwards. But I'm going to play you a little video I made for you, and we will, and you can sit back and relax. I'll put this on YouTube, and you can certainly, I'll give it to Barry, so you don't have to take notes. You can play it back. I just finished it last night, so I haven't got it up on YouTube yet, but you can watch this now.
It's Ron Brown with Tech for Seniors and another tutorial. Why is my internet so slow? Can it be my hardware? Now you remember the routine. If you like this video, please click the like, and if you want to promote the channel and help us, please subscribe. What is a modem, and does it affect speed? Well, your modem is used to change the signal from a transmission signal to a signal your computer is going to use. So basically, it converts the type of signal that you have. Now, there are different types of modems for each type of signal that you have or may have. For example, the modem is specific to DSL. If you have a DSL signal, then you'll have a DSL modem. If you have a cable signal coming in, then you'll have a cable modem. And if you have a fiber optic modem, you'll have a fiber optic, if you have a fiber optic signal, then you'll have a fiber optic modem. So each type of service you have requires a specific modem, and you can't swap them around. So if you have one, you have to use it with that specific service. Modems are almost always provided by your ISP. Oh, I'm sorry. ISP is Internet Service Provider. So they're almost always provided by your ISP. Now, sort of one size fits all. Now, that's not exactly true. I've had 3 upgrades to my cable service this year, and in each time I required a different modem to give me different speeds. So your provider may give you a different modem depending on what speed you want. Now, the other thing about cable modems is it's interesting that we have upload and download speed. And have you ever wondered why in a fiber optic connection, you might have 150 megabytes down and 150 up? It's equal. Down and up is equal. But why, when we have cable modems, is it always so much slower going up? In other words, we have 150, 200 download, but we only have 10 going up. And that's because of the software called DOCSIS 3.1 that actually is used in cable modems to transmit the signal. This is not something you can upgrade or change. This is what the cable companies use to transmit the signal. And this is going to change over time as this software improves and changes. But right now, you'll find a big difference in upload and download speed with your cable modem. Most ISPs will provide you with a modem. It's always better to purchase a modem rather than renting it because you're going to pay rental costs over a number of years. The modems are not that expensive. However, most recently, ISPs usually will charge you a rental fee, and it's harder to purchase a modem. Now, a lot of the modems that are provided by ISPs now are a combination modem and router. This is not a worrisome thing because you can always bridge the modem to your own router if you want, but we're going to talk about this a little bit later. I should tell you about a recent federal law. This was called the TVPA, or the Television Viewer Protection Act. This was passed in 2019. And what this says is this: it requires the cable companies to negotiate agreements in good faith. Provides more transparency in your cable bill, so you should know what you're paying for. But here's the kicker. It bans companies for charging extra fees when you use your own equipment. So if you purchased your cable modem or the modem you have many years ago, why can't you continue to use it? This, of course, is a big controversy right now. The ISPs generally are charging you a administration fee or a maintenance fee or some sort of fee surrounding your modem, even if you do own it. There seems to be little incentive to actually bring this, put teeth in this legislation. So you can fight that out as you see fit, but most likely you'll be paying some sort of maintenance fee for this combination modem router. Well, what is a router and can it affect speed? There are 3 main functions of a router. Now, most of you associate your router with creating a Wi-Fi signal, but the primary and most important thing about a router is to protect you. It is your first firewall safeguard against the bad guys coming in through the internet. That is why it's so important that you keep the software or firmware updated. The second function of a router is producing a Wi-Fi signal, and that's probably what most of you associate it with. And the third thing, of course, is routing or connecting all your peripheral devices and Internet of Things. It assigns a specific ID number. Now, there are 2 things you need to do with your router to maintain fast speeds. And the first thing is update your firmware. This is so important. And most routers don't normally update automatically unless you have what we call a mesh router, and we'll be talking a little bit about that later. Now, also, it's important to remember is if you want fast internet, don't use Wi-Fi. Plug your router directly into your computer. Get an Ethernet cable and plug it right in. Some of the biggest mistakes I see is when people have their router sitting right next to their computer and they're using Wi-Fi. Everything we say in the last half of this video will all go away if you just plug in your computer directly to your router and not use Wi-Fi. Now, to log into your router is different for each type of router, but generally speaking, you'll put the IP address of your router in your search box and it will bring up your router, such as this example with D-Link. You'll then need to go to the administration section and put your password in. You probably don't know what the password is. Most of the time it's admin. Usually the password will be, the generic default password will be in your instruction manual. Once you put this in, you'll log into your router and it will be very easy. Usually you'll get a message like this saying update firmware. Click on that and you simply update the firmware in your router. Very simple to do. Please make sure for optimum speed, make sure that your software in your router is updated. Now, if you have a router that's over 5 years old, time to get a new one. Lots of big changes occurred over the past 5 years. Now, in the bottom slide here, I have a picture of a router that's currently offered on Amazon. Now, the thing that's so important when you purchase a router is that you get one that's made this year so that you get a modern, up-to-date one with the current software. When you buy a router on Amazon, unless you know specifically what you're purchasing, you could be getting a 5-year-old router or more. Even though it's a new router and it's offered on Amazon, it's still a very bad deal because of the age. So I tend to recommend you buy a router from Best Buy who has current stock and you're assured to get something that's a current model. Should you use a combination router that is provided by your ISP? Well, that's really sort of a complex question and difficult to answer. In general, the routers that I've seen that are combination routers are very average routers, but that's not always the case. For example, my cable provider this year provided me with 3 different modem router combinations. In all cases, I switched to my Orbi, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I had it bridged over to my own system. But in the last one that they came and provided, it was a very advanced router and even more advanced than the one that I have. So it really depends on your specific provider and what the capabilities of this hardware they're putting in. So I can't give you a specific recommendation on that other than say it's generally most now what I'm seeing is that combination modem routers are being the ones that are offered to you. So ask your ISP for recommendation. Now, the second thing that's important to know is that if you do have a router and you think the router is one that you want to use, it's your own and you like it, then you can bridge it to the existing combination modem router. So you can use your own. Even though you have a combination modem router that the ISP has given you, you can still use your own. Now, you can't just connect it. It needs to be bridged. Now, what does bridging mean? Well, this is where your ISP has to make some changes in the software, and this is usually done through their central computer system, and allows you to bridge your own modem, bridge your own router to the, so why don't they just let you plug your router into the modem? Well, that would be a little bit sneaky because then people could simply take their neighbor and take their router and plug it into their system, and their neighbor then could take another neighbor and plug it into their system, and pretty soon on one service connection you could be running a small network. And this is sort of frowned upon by the ISPs. So that's why they're really careful, and in most cases they only allow one router to be connected per service. So that's why you have to have it bridged, and the company needs to do that. You should have a dual band router. If you purchased a router in the last 5 years, then you probably have a dual band router. Now, what do I mean by a dual band? Well, it broadcasts on 2 different frequencies. It uses a 2.4 gigahertz frequency and a 5 gigahertz frequency. So there's 2 frequencies that can broadcast your Wi-Fi on. Now, there's no relationship to 5G. When I talk about 5 gigahertz, I'm talking about a frequency, nothing to do with 5G. Now, you need to know how Wi-Fi signals work. If I have a router at my house and you have a router next door at your house, and our Wi-Fi signals are broadcasting, there's obviously going to be some collision. The problem that happens is this: if my signal's going out and it's going by your house, or there's a signal coming in and the 2 collide, my signal says to your signal, "Oh, excuse me," and your signal says, "Excuse me." "Oh, you go." "No, I'll go." "Okay, I'll go." So signals are very polite, but this leads to congestion, because the more collisions you have between different modems, the slower your systems will get. This becomes a huge problem with signal strength. If you have a router that you've bought and it's a very powerful router, and you're using it for a big house, let's say a 4,000 square foot house, and then you move into a condo, a place where you have a very tiny area to live, and on that particular floor, maybe your condo floor, you have maybe 10 suites, and they all have routers in them. But if you've brought your bad boy router, as we call it, and bring it into your condo, then the signal strength is going to blast across the whole floor and all those people. It's going to lead to congestion, and it's going to lead to collision amongst these radio waves, and this is going to slow everybody's signal down. So that may be an option when you, if you live in a populated condo or apartment, and all of a sudden you notice a degradation in your signal. It could be someone that's brought a bad boy router up and plugged it in, and it's giving a lot of congestion traffic. So that's one of the problems that you may have. Now let's talk about, there's 2 signals. There's the 2.4 gigahertz signal. This is the most commonly used with routers, Internet of Things, hubs, and security cameras. They usually broadcast on the 2.4 gigahertz. It gets fairly good penetration, so it goes through walls, goes through glass, and certainly even people, right? So this is why it's always been used. This is the original Wi-Fi signal, was 2.4 gigahertz. The problem, of course, is since everybody's broadcasting on that one signal, it can lead with a lot of congestion and slowing of traffic. The second broadcast signal is on the 5 gigahertz. And this should really be your choice when you're choosing between the 2, and we'll talk about how to do that in a minute. You should be broadcasting on or receiving on 5 gigahertz. And why is that important? Well, there's less problems with congestion, and it also is much faster. Being a higher frequency, it actually is a much faster signal. However, the problem with it is that it doesn't penetrate walls, glass, and it's usually limited to one room. Now, this is a great advantage if you're in a congested area, such as a condo. If you have a lot of Wi-Fi around you and you're receiving on your 5 gigahertz signal from your router, then that means that you're probably going to not get that much congestion, because this signal doesn't go outside your room. So this is the signal you should be using on a dual band router. Now, let's look at the two signals that you'll have coming from your router. Now, your SSD, well, your SSD is a unique name that is associated with your router. Now, it might be Netgear 345 or whatever you've named it. Now, in this example I've given you, you'll see that this is called Home 6595. So if you look on your Wi-Fi settings, you'll see that the arrow, the red arrow points to 2.4. Now, when you're connected, then you would be connected to the slower 2.4 gigahertz. But also, if you look on your network settings for Wi-Fi, you'll also see that the same SSID has a 5 next to it. And this is the same router broadcasting in two different frequencies. One is 2.4 and one is 5. In the example here, the person is connected to the 2.4. To connect to the 5, you would simply move your cursor down and click on the Home 6595-5, and then you would be connected to the 5 gigahertz frequency. So what I want you to do is next time you're at your computer, look at your Wi-Fi settings, look down the list, and I bet you'll find that there's 2 broadcasting frequencies for your SSID. Have a look. And then let's choose the 5 gigahertz because it's going to be faster. Now, what happens if you don't see a 5 gigahertz? Well, there's a number of reasons for that, but there's primarily 3. First of all, you may not have a dual band router, so possibility. The second thing is that your 5 gigahertz band, 5 gigahertz frequency may need to be turned on in your router. Most routers that you purchase come with the 5 gigahertz turned on. Part of the reason, I think, is that most people don't know how to log into their router, so that would cause a huge amount of support calls to the router makers if it wasn't automatically turned on. So most of the time I see with modern routers that you purchase today, the 5 gigahertz will be turned on. So you should see it. Now, if you have a dual band router and it is turned on and you still don't see the 5 gigahertz signal, then it could be that your laptop is very old and doesn't have the 5 gigahertz receiver in it. So in the diagram I've shown here, I've just shown you the router settings, and usually it's just a toggle switch to turn on the 5 gigahertz if you need to switch it on. Now, not to worry, if you have an older laptop and you don't have a 5 gigahertz receiver in there, you can easily add one very cheaply. And this is a USB dual band adapter. This was $22.95 on Amazon. And you can just plug this into the USB port, and it will give you you'll be able to receive a 5 gigahertz signal. These are readily available and not expensive. Now, do all routers broadcast equally? Well, no. Some are more powerful than others, and you can just imagine this particular router and look at all the aerials in it. Amazing. This is a bad boy router. This is a very powerful router, and one that you might consider if you have a very large house. But certainly inconsiderate if you live in a one-bedroom apartment and there's lots of apartments around you. Because if you're going to use this router, then in fact, you're going to be broadcasting a lot of signals and causing a lot of congestion, which again, as we've discussed, is going to slow the system down for everybody. Another reason, by the way, to make sure you don't use Wi-Fi, because if you plug into your router, then this, of course, will not be a problem. Let's talk a little bit about Wi-Fi extenders. We also call these boosters. These are very popular. Many of you always ask me, should I get an extender to help with poor coverage in an area of my house? Now, the Wi-Fi extender extends the range of a Wi-Fi wireless signal from a Wi-Fi router. So it's going to take your existing signal and it's going to extend the range of it. But that's with a cost. So it acts like a bridge between your Wi-Fi router and the Wi-Fi device that you want to connect. So if you have a computer in 2 or 3 rooms over and you can't connect to it, then what it will do is it will take the signal, it will rebroadcast it and connect it in the other room, the 3 rooms over. So it's using your existing network. And it acts sort of like a wireless access point for your devices to connect to. So it actually has a unique SSID. So it's going to, you're going to have your initial router, which has an SSID. It's going to broadcast to this device. This device has, it's like a second router. It will receive the signal, and then it will have its own SSID, and then it will broadcast to the next device that you want. Now, there's a cost to this, and here's in this diagram, I've showed you exactly how this is going to work. Each time you run your signal through an extender or booster, you're going to reduce the speed by 50%. And the reason for that is because it is it's the law of physics is that the signal has to come to one device to the other device, and then it's going to be rebroadcast again to the next device. So you're going to find that the signal is will get reduced. So you do not want to use Wi-Fi extenders in combination, or things are going to get very slow. Now, this is exactly opposite to mesh routers. An example of a mesh router is above that, and you'll see there's no loss of signal. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Now, one of the things you should do if you have poor areas of signal in your house is you might want to consider a power line adapter. We can actually send your Wi-Fi signal down the electrical grid in your house. It actually works on your 110 volt wiring. So in this situation, you'll see that your router is connected to a device that's plugged in to an electrical outlet. 3 rooms down where you want to connect your device, you simply plug another device into the electrical outlet, and you can either plug that into the computer or it will broadcast a Wi-Fi signal for you. And so you can actually run a network in your house on your existing electrical wiring that you have in all your rooms. The one thing that it won't do, though, is if you have a circuit breaker panel, it won't cross the circuit breaker panel. So, for example, suppose you had in your house, you had an existing panel, and then you maybe had another office in another building or garage, then it wouldn't be able to go out. There would be another electrical panel with circuit breakers that wouldn't cross that. So there are some limitations, but these are commonly used. They're quite inexpensive. As the example I've given you, the one here is about $74.99 for 2 of them. And this will effectively make it quite easy to get signals to all parts of your house. Now, for large homes, you should consider a mesh router. I have a mesh router. I use a system called the Orbi. It's made by Netgear. These are adaptable to any size of your house. They are purchased by the square footage of your coverage you want. We'll talk a bit about that in a minute. The firmware is done automatically. There's no loss of speed with nodes. And there's a single SSD for the entire house. And we'll talk a bit about that as well. And they are they broadcast in 2.4 and 2. We are going to take this mesh router system and put it in a 3-story house. The base station will go on the first floor, the first satellite will go on the second floor, and the second satellite on the third floor. Let's have a look and see how this is going to look. Here's our 3-story house. On the third floor, we have kids playing 4K games. On the second floor, we have Mom, who's a teacher, doing a Zoom conference. On the first floor, we have Dad checking email. If we look at the bandwidth requirements, I've allocated this as roughly 60, 30, and 10 as a distribution. If we look at internet speed, if we look at the speed of how you would be allocating this frequency in this, you'll see on the left side, you'll see with an extender, as we move up, it would certainly be a decreasing speed. With the mesh system, it's the same. What the mesh system does do, though, is it reallocates the bandwidth and will selectively make the bandwidth higher priority for the 2 kids playing 4K video games with their televisions. Now let's look at things change. The kids go to sleep, and now we have Mom, who's doing the conference, and Dad checking email. There is a reallocation of bandwidth. And again, I've split it about 80-20. And this is exactly what the mesh router would reallocate to allow the effective use of the system. This is a big advantage of a mesh router system. All right, how does the mesh router system adjust the workflow to the demand? This is done through what we call a backhaul channel. So for example, with my Orbi, I have a 2.4 gigahertz frequency, but I have 2 5 gigahertz frequencies. So it uses one of the 5 gigahertz frequencies to fill and move the data to points in the system that require it. Now, a little trick is that if you do have a mesh router system, you have a number of satellite units in your house, and you're using it wirelessly, but you also can connect that to a wired internet connection in your house, you should do so. Because then the backhaul channel can actually be a wired connection. It doesn't have to be wireless. And that means you just plug it into the back of your mesh router. So that is one of the huge advantages in a mesh router system, is the good coverage and the selective movement of workflow data that you need depending on what the demand is at that time. So you might want to give it a consideration. Now, I wanted to review the USB ports on your computer. This is important and a place where you can make a big mistake. In this current slide, you'll see my laptop. I have an IBM ThinkPad, and you'll see on the side, you'll see it has a HDMI port, but it has 2 USB ports. Now, on the other side, which you can't see, there's 1 USB port, so I have 3 USB ports on this laptop. The important thing that you need to know is that all USB ports are not the same. And I have a docking station that I plug into one of my USB ports. This docking station has all my monitors coming into it. It has my internet coming in, and this all connects into one of my USB ports. Well, on the right side of my computer, on the laptop, is a USB 2 port. The 2 on the left side of my computer are USB 3.1. Now, what's the difference? Well, there's a big difference. And in the diagram here, you'll see some different types of USB ports. Now, I have a whole series of 15 slides on the numbering nomenclature for USB ports. You don't want to see it. You'll never remember it. It's really complicated, and the little symbols are so small, it's really hard to see them. But there actually is a labeling system you can use for this. The easiest way to do it is simply to get your instruction manual for your computer and look, and it will tell you what the ports are on your computer, because it depends on what you want to plug in. For example, if you have a mouse, you would want to plug it in if you're using it as a wired connection, into USB 2. It doesn't use much power. It doesn't need to be fast. But if you had an external hard drive, you want to plug it into your fast port. Now, this gets more complicated if you have, I just bought a new computer from Dell. It has 12 USB ports. It has a Thunderbolt port. It has 4 ports on the front and 8 ports on the back, USB ports. So you need to know what those ports are because it can save you a lot of money. For example, let's talk about USB Thunderbolt 3. Now, most of you won't have a Thunderbolt 3 port. This is sort of unusual on a laptop, but I do have a Thunderbolt 3 on my main computer I just bought. And it is the fastest data transfer on USB, and it's 40 gigabytes per second. So it's an extremely fast transfer. So if you had a Thunderbolt USB port on your computer and you wanted to buy a Thunderbolt drive, for example, you connect them to, you have a very, very, very fast system. But most people won't have Thunderbolt 3, but you will have USB 3.1, and the transfer of USB 3.1 is 5 gigabits per second. But now, sneaky coming up here, there's a new standard coming out, and it's 3.1 generation 2, and that is 10 gigabits per second. Well, what's the difference? Big deal. USB 3.1, that's both there, but one's generation 1 and one's generation 2. Well, I just bought a 2 terabyte hard drive, an SSD external hard drive. And in the options, I had the choice of choosing between 2 different models. And there was about $150 difference between the 2 models, and it was based on transfer speed. And because my laptop is limited to the 3.1 generation 1 at 5 gigabits per second, it would have been no use whatsoever to spend the extra $150 to buy the more expensive solid-state drive. So again, you need to know what ports you're using and what the labeling of the ports is, for sure, because they're not all equal. And you want to be careful what you plug in, because you don't want to be plugging your fast SSD external hard drive into your slowest port. So please have a look at that, check your manual, and review the USB ports on your computer. All right, in closing, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Wi-Fi 6. This is a new standard that you'll be seeing available on routers when you go to Best Buy and buy them. So should you purchase Wi-Fi 6 or not? Well, for sure it is going to be more expensive, but there's something I want you to consider. As we move ahead, you'll find that the speed at which we are receiving internet signal is going up considerably. And you all understand that. In fact, it's quite common now to be able to get a gigabit service to your house. A lot of what we do in our homes requires Wi-Fi, and we're transferring data back and forth. And you all understand, of course, that to transfer data faster, Wi-Fi has to be better, because it could be the slowest part of your system, and so you wouldn't be able to get benefit from a very fast internet supply. And I think you all understand that. So yes, we have to move ahead with Wi-Fi so that we're able to transmit faster speeds. One of the things that's important that's a change between Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6 is simply this. In this video, I pointed out all the benefits of 5 gigahertz, right? Remember that? It's in a smaller room, it's less interference, and we already discussed that. And we discussed the problems of network congestion on the 2.4 gigahertz. What Wi-Fi 6 does, Wi-Fi 5 only was involved in the 5 gigahertz. But Wi-Fi 6 now is taking the 2.4 gigahertz, the slower speed that we talked about, and it's dramatically increasing the speed of 2.4 gigahertz. So the beauty of 2.4 gigahertz is it goes much farther. But we always wanted to use the 5 because it's much faster. But with Wi-Fi 6, this is all changing, and this is going to have a big effect on the speed of your system. So I think even though, yes, everything is going to have to convert to Wi-Fi 6. It'll be backwards compatible. Yes, your computer will have to have Wi-Fi 6 in it. Your Internet of Things devices will have to have Wi-Fi 6. And of course, your router will have to be a Wi-Fi 6 enabled. But this is a standard that's going to quickly transform into most of the routers that we purchase. They are more expensive. If you go to buy an Orbi system now that have Wi-Fi 6 in it, you're going to be paying about $150 more. I do think, though, that this is quickly going to change, and this is going to be the standard with some pretty big advantages. So you might want to consider this in your purchase of your next router.
All right. Is everybody still awake?
It's a lot to digest.
It is, it is, it is. I tried to make it fairly simple so people would understand it. I had a couple of comments I wanted to make before the question started. The question I always get asked is the routers that are provided by, and this is most likely your cable company, should I use the router provided by my cable company, or should I use my own router? And then I want to just give you an example. I know Barry just recently upgraded to a gigabit service. He probably got a new router with that. When I got my router that I was telling you that for my gigabit service 3 months ago, I was talking to the young man that came, and I like to always talk to the techs because they're so knowledgeable. And I was sort of said to him as he was installing my gigabit router, I said to him, I said, you know, I said, is anyone dumb enough to buy a gigabit router now? I know I'm paying a bit more for it, but like, how many people do this? He said, oh, these are the only ones that we're mostly installing now. And I said, what? And he said, oh, he said, yeah. And not only was with the gigabit router was a mesh system, and he was telling me all about it, how advanced the mesh system was. He said, oh yeah, if you want another satellite unit, we'll just put it upstairs for you. He said, that's not a problem. And it was even more advanced than my, expensive Orbi. And I thought, what the heck's going on here? And he said, well, what you have to remember is this. You all probably have, and I still do have this in my house, where I have a DVR, PVR, whatever you want to call it, in which the cable company put out, like, it's a hard drive that sits in my house. And what I do is I download all the stuff I want. It sits on this hard drive. And then I have little boxes that connect all my TVs, and I can watch movies and do everything that I've taped, right? And you probably all do the same thing. That's the 20-year-old technology, right? So, but that's not what the new standards are and what the cable companies are using. The cable companies are all using Wi-Fi. So in fact, you don't need to actually use, they don't need to actually use connect you with cable to your TVs. And that's a big advantage if you want to put TVs in different rooms and you don't have cable in there. You don't have to worry now because it's all done Wi-Fi. Now, the advantage is to the cable companies is this. If you could imagine everybody in this room all downloading movies and stuff they want onto your home DVR, PVR, whatever you want to call it, right? That's a huge amount of bandwidth that's sucking out and they're downloading all this stuff. A lot of times people never watch it. I download a whole bunch of stuff each day. News services, I download 3 or 4 different shows on news. I only watch one of them, right? So I'm using up a lot of bandwidth downloading all this stuff. Well, with the new system is, of course, you don't download anything. It's all on demand. So you just go and you click on whatever you want to watch, and it streams it directly from the cable company's head office. So it saves them a huge amount in bandwidth. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, if you go right now and you want to buy an Orbi mesh router system and you want Wi-Fi 6, you're going to be paying around $600-700, right? It's the expensive system. Well, the router that they just put in my house 3 months ago is exactly that router. And they charge me, I don't know, $10 a month rent or something like that. So all of them saying is that you need to look at what they're going to give you, because it may be a good deal for you, right? It might be a real good deal if you're getting a great router, depending on what your cable company is. So I wanted just to mention that. The other thing that from your poll that you did, you asked a question, how many devices that you have connected to your router? And I would suggest that none of you have any idea how many devices you have. You may think you only have 2 or 3, but when you actually go to your router and you look in the settings to see how many devices you've got connected, you'll be very surprised on how many different peripherals you have connected. You know, whether it's a light bulb, whether it's your phone, whether it's all the devices, you will be surprised. You'll say, oh, I had no idea all those things were connected, and they are, right? So you need to look at that. Most routers will connect up to around 250 devices. So you got a fair number of devices. I have around 120 devices in my house, you know, with between doorbells and smartphones and smart switches and all the Internet of Things, you know, they're there. So that was, oh, and the other question you had is about a hotspot. And for those of you, I mean, my advice is this, and I give a whole talk on internet and the options you will have for internet. And really, as we move forward in the post-COVID, you know, era, is that internet and developing and getting a fast, reliable source of internet is so important. And if you can't get hotspots, are always problematic, and they're generally expensive. And so my advice to you is to look at your options. If you have no other options, in other words, there's nothing that you can do and there's no other options for you, then yes, you can use a hotspot. You will soon, and I'm talking about very soon, if you're live in the northern United States, you'll be able to connect to Starlink. And we actually have someone at Tech for Seniors, one of our viewers, has connected to Starlink now as a commercial, not as a beta, but as a full commercial. And he's very happy with the Starlink service. So there will be other options for you other than a hotspot with the Starlink service. So that's really all I had to say. I'll leave it open for questions.
Yeah, I've got a
Brown.
couple of really quick questions here.
Sure.
The first one's on your systems that use your existing wiring as a carrier for signals on top of the 60 hertz there. If you've got surge protectors and battery backup systems with the protectors in them also, does that filter out the carrier signal as it comes through the wires?
Don't think so. I don't think so. Your battery backup would be to your computer, right?
It works to all my hubs and all of that sort of things also. So
yeah, but it wouldn't have effect. Because what you're going to do is you're going to plug a power line adapter. You're going to take your signal from your, it'll be a plug from your router, right? And it's going to take it from the router, and it's going to plug it into the power line adapter, which is going to plug into your 110 volt in the wall, right? So that wouldn't really have any effect. So your backup, your UPS backup that you'd have plugged into that would have no effect on that.
Okay, because I had some of the X10 stuff from the old smart home stuff, which uses the carrier signal throughout, and I didn't know if any of those surge protectors filtered out that serial, that signal.
I wouldn't think so. I can't. I'm 99% sure on that, not 100%.
Okay, it makes sense. The second was also on. Oh, damn. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I haven't a senior moment here.
Okay, we're gonna need to move on, but you can see me right there in the Internet of Things.
Yeah, Dr. Brown.
Go ahead.
I've heard of that throttling happens with a lot of ISPs, and after they give you a high signal or fast signal, then they throttle you after a while. What do you know about that?
That is more related to that's certainly true, but that's more related to wireless connections with your phone. The throttling issue is mostly related to internet speed and if you're using your phone and your service provider with your phone to use for internet speed. And for sure, depending on the plan you have, there's a lot of throttling. For home-based systems rather than portable systems such as you know, such as what we discussed, cable, whether you have DSL or fiber optic, you don't see throttling. In fact, I think last month I used, like, can you believe this? I used 980 gigabytes of data I downloaded last month and uploaded. So that's almost a terabyte. I can remember 20 years ago, if you used half a gigabyte, it was about $1,000 a month. You know, it was so there's a lot of, with these new, with, you know, with the types of speeds we're talking about now, particularly with fixed base or you know, I'm not talking about hotspot. You see, that's the problem with hotspot. A hotspot is taking your internet off your wireless connection, your phone plan, right? And yes, you get throttling with that. That's a huge problem. And that's why hotspots really are not very ideal for that.
Dorothy, you raised your hand. Would you unmute yourself, please?
When you have Wi-Fi, aren't you considered to be in a hotspot?
Sorry, the question was if you are,
if you have a Wi-Fi in your condo or whatever, your house, aren't you considered to be in a hotspot?
No, no. What you're talking about, well, traditionally, what we talk about as a hotspot, it's a way in which you're connecting to your service, right? A hotspot connects you to your, for internet, let's say, for internet, and it's connecting you to your phone wireless system. In other words, you are getting your computer signal from your wireless connected. It's sort of wireless to wireless, right? You're getting your wireless connection coming in from your cell phone provider. It's then turning it into a signal, and it's providing that to your computer. And then you're turning around rebroadcasting it as a wireless, right? So you're doing, that's it. So that's how that works.
Okay, Kenneth, excuse me. We have Dorothy Abram who raised her hand. Dorothy, will you unmute yourself?
Okay.
What is your question?
I have an Xfinity router modem that Comcast gave me. How do I check to see if it's a 2.5, or how can I get it to a 5 megahertz?
5 gigahertz. Very easy. So what I would do is how old is your computer that you want to connect? Is it a relatively new computer?
It's about 2 years old.
Oh, that's good. That should be fine. So all you need to do is go into your Wi-Fi. Just go down at the bottom of in your Wi-Fi settings, and you'll be able to see all the SSIDs. You'll see your neighbors and the guy up above you, or you'll see them all there. Okay.
Yeah.
And you'll know what your SSID is. Do you call it, what do you call it? Netgear 652 or whatever?
I call it St. Louis, but that's okay.
Okay, so whatever you call it, all right. You should see whatever you call it, and there'll be 2.4. But if you look down the list, keep looking, look, you probably will see a 5. Okay.
Dorothy, can I say something?
Yes.
Do you have a gateway type router or a standalone?
A standalone. It's a big, skinny, tall thing.
Yeah.
I just went to look to see if it had a name, and it just has Xfinity on it.
Yeah. So
Netgear. I think it was the Netgear. Yeah.
If you see the 5 there, okay, then all you do is just connect to the 5. That's all you have to do. Boom, and you'll be on the 5 gigahertz band. Okay.
Okay.
If you don't see it, then I would give your cable company a call and say, hey, is this a dual band router? What's the scoop? And make some noise about that. And if they say, oh no, it's a single band router, my advice is say, look, you dummies, they haven't made single band routers for 5 years. I want a better router. Come out here and put a new one in for me. All right.
Okay.
And I bet you get a brand new router.
We have another question, excuse me, from Lorraine. Would you unmute yourself, please?
Go ahead, Lorraine.
Yes, I think I'm unmuted.
Yeah,
yes.
I can hear you.
I'm in the process of changing my modem and my router. And I wanted to know, is that something that a person such as yourself could install at a distance, or do I need someone to come in my house to do that installation?
So what are you talking about, a cable modem, or are you talking about what type of? So you have
Yes,
cable.
presently I have a Netgear modem, which is my own.
Yeah.
And I have a Linksys router.
Right.
I'm in the process of ordering a Netgear router and a Netgear Wi-Fi 6 and a Netgear modem, separate items, two separate, not combined.
Right.
And so I want somebody to do all the setup. Now, is that something that I need to have someone in my house? Or is that,
do you mind me asking who your cable provider is?
a Comcast?
Comcast. Okay. So, you know, I mean, what the answer, first of all, you know, to hook a modem up is real simple. You plug it in and it works, right? I mean, it's not, there's nothing really to the setup. It's really very simple. My sort of in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not sure why. I guess you're buying that to because you don't want, is it Comcast to actually charge you a monthly rental or whatever like that?
I've never used their equipment. I've always had my own.
Right.
And I want to continue with that.
And that's fine. But I'm going to tell you this, that you might save some money, because what you may find, you should talk to Comcast first, because what you may find is when you connect it, Comcast is still going to charge you a fee for that router, for your modem anyway. They're going to charge you, whether you buy a new one and hook it in yourself, they're going to know that the modem is connected. Okay. So you may be doing yourself a disservice for that, because you may be paying $60 or $80 for the modem, and you would have got one for free from Comcast. So why pay for it? Because they're going to charge you $10 a month anyway.
Well, right? At the moment, I have my own modem and my own router, and I want to continue with that. But I understand that I need to call Comcast to connect that new modem, which is fine. And if there's a fee, there's a fee.
Okay.
But after that, it's mine. So
yeah, that's good. But okay, so there is no difficulty. You just basically plug it in and plug it in the wall, your modem, and it will be super easy and it'll just work. As far as your router goes, again, it's really plug and play. You plug the darn thing in and off you go. It's really, really simple. Okay. There should be no problem with that whatsoever. The only issue will be is Comcast will have to, Comcast isn't just going to let you plug anything in and run it, right? Because you're paying for the service. So you'll need to talk to them, and they'll need to make sure the signal is turned on at your house. And I don't know whether they will actually need to send a technician out to do that or not. I have no idea.
Oh, now what about, setting up all the networks? Like right now I have 3 networks in my house using the present equipment that I have.
Right.
So those, and naming them and all of that. So example, I chose that my TV, my smart TV and my smart stove is on the 5 megahertz speed.
Right.
So, and then I have another network, which when I have guests, so they don't use my network.
Yeah.
So what about doing all those settings? Does it automatically captures what I add, or do I have to reset all those things up?
So first of all, it shouldn't be a problem. It depends on the router that you purchase. Most routers will already have the guest network enabled, right? That's just a switch in the router setting, is to enable a guest network. That's common. Most routers have that. And a lot of times routers, it's turned on. So when you plug it in and turn your router on, you'll immediately see your 2.4, your 5 gigahertz, you'll see your guest network. It's all there. I mean, there's nothing to set up. It's all just there. And then you just need to connect your devices to that Wi-Fi signal, whether you want the 2.4 or 5. There's really not a lot these are darn simple things to connect, right? So I don't think you'll have any trouble at all. I think you just plug it in. The only problem you will have is when you buy all this stuff and you hook it up, and you don't get a signal because Comcast hasn't turned the signal on. You need to talk to them and make sure they turn the signal on. But aside from that, I don't think you're going to have any problems.
Okay, thank you very much, Lorraine.
I'd
like to.
And one other thing, Lorraine, can I just tell Lorraine one more thing?
Go ahead.
Lorraine, when you buy your modem, please make sure that you buy a cable modem, okay? because there's DSL modems, there's fiber
Yes.
modems. You want to make sure I see that all the time where people have, you know, a DSL modem, and then they've brought it from their house to their wherever, and they say, well, it won't work. And they try to plug it into their cable modem, right? It won't work, you know.
Okay.
It's gotta
Thank
be-
you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to ask that you hold up your questions at this time. We're running a little bit late and we have another presenter. So put your questions into the chat at this time. Those of you, Marcia and Irving, I'd appreciate it if you did that at this moment. And our next presenter is Dr. Don Grossman. Thank you very much, Ron, by the way, for an excellent presentation. I appreciate
It's
it.
excellent. It was great.
And I'll stick around at the end. I'll watch this next presentation. I'll stay around for any more questions. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Our next presentation is by Dr. Don Grossman, who's going to give you an update on his excellent assistive technology presentation from February 9th. Take it away, Carol.
Thank you. And actually, before Don gets started, we just wanted to say that you'll find Don was kind enough to completely redo his presentation from last time. He's added more commentary to it, and all of the videos that he used are placed as links both in the ICYMI section, and you can also access them directly on the assisted technology column on the front page of our website. And so I'm actually not going to run the poll. I'm going to start by sharing the screen and then let Don go ahead and talk about one of the things that I think of all the videos he did last time, it was probably the most useful to the most of us. So I'm going to bring it up. And hold on a second. And so this is a video that was about using voice commands again. And I'm just going to play the video. It's short, and then Don will answer questions about that and also be available to show you how it looks on his phone. And so we'll get going.
Edit text with your voice, which is useful if you have limited mobility. Here's how to use dictation, edit text, and use dictation, commands, and gestures together. Before you start, install iOS 13 or later on your device, and make sure voice control is turned on. Go into your accessibility settings or by asking Siri. If this is your first time using it, check out the links in the description below to learn how to get started and use basic navigation. We're going to start by sending a quick message, but these commands will work in any app you can type in. When voice control is active and listening, you'll see a blue microphone in the top left corner of your screen. To enter new text with dictation, make sure you're in an active text box and then start speaking. By the way, comma, cake or flan, period. Don't forget to include punctuation as well. Oops, need to delete something? Delete previous character. This command will delete the last character you entered. You can also delete your last dictation by saying, undo that. Let's try again, question mark. To edit something at the very beginning of a text field or document, you can move the cursor. Move to beginning. Oh, ellipses. That's better. Tap send. Voice control allows you to edit existing text and make even more corrections. Let's add a new item to this note. Main activity, party clown. You can easily replace a word or phrase if you change your mind. Replace party clown with giant piñata. Need to make another correction? Voice control understands commands like move up 2 lines. Select previous word. Capitalize that. For a list of helpful commands, just say, show me what to say. These suggestions will change depending on the app you're using. Say, tap done to go back. If you want to correct a word, you can ask to see a list of suggestions. Select confetti. correct that. These suggestions could be to correct spelling, show similar words, or even show relevant emoji. Say a number to make a correction. 4. If you want to stop voice control from listening for dictation, like if you're in a noisy environment, say command mode. This will pause dictation, but will stay active for navigation commands. To turn dictation back on, say dictation mode. Voice control can tell the difference between general dictation and commands, like to open an app or tap a button. Open messages. Tap iMessage. Happy birthday! Exclamation point. Looking forward to seeing you Friday night. Cake emoji. Long press send. Tap screen. Swipe left. Swipe left. Tap send with balloons. And there you have it, a hands-free way to type and edit. For more about Apple's accessibility features, subscribe to the Apple Support channel or click another video to keep learning.
Okay, and Don, I'm going to stop the share and turn it back to you so that you can carry on. And we realize we're coming up to the end of the hour. Don, if you may be able to be available to stay a little longer with people if they would like to stay longer, but we know some people may need to leave. So
Sure enough, that's no problem. I'm going to share my screen here and show my iPhone currently here also. And then we'll just go a couple things real quick. Like mirroring.
And you can decide, Don, if you want to take questions before you start or wait until.
I think I would be happy to do that. So here is my screen currently. So I'll leave it there and I will just actually go to questions if you would like. But at this point, just as it showed there earlier, wake up. We can start doing things with this that we can with just commands. This is totally hands-free. Swipe left. Well, let me make sure it's turned on here too.
Wake up. Wake up.
Yes. And make sure, here's how we go in and turn this on to get it started. Accessibility, which is its own. And then we go to voice control. And make sure it's turned on here. And then we're good from that point on.
And you can see the icon showing up at the top of the screen now, the little blue mic.
It should be, yes, it should be up there at the top of the screen.
Swipe right. Swipe left. Repeat 3. Go to sleep. So it is totally, at this point, interactive. One of the other things that I showed last time to be able to access it and work with a little bit easier is there's 3 ways to be able to show and narrow your screen down. Show grid or wake up. Show grid. And you can see here now, here's the grid with numbers. Show grid with names. Hide grid. So you can narrow it down one piece at a time to show exactly how you can just narrow in, et cetera, et cetera. So if you would like, let me just open up for questions at this point.
Don, can you show some of the things that you might also want to dictate into aside from texts?
Oh yeah, let me show you just a really quick video here of, here's a gentleman in a wheelchair that uses this extensively for being able to use slideshow.
And we'll play just this. Can you all see this video?
Not yet.
No, have to unshare what you're currently sharing and
Okay,
then
all right,
share
let
what
me,
you.
yeah, let me share that, stop this, and we'll go to share. Oh, I lost my share. Here we go.
There you go.
Now you can see it?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can't hear anything because you didn't share the sound, computer sound.
Oh dear. All right, let me stop. All right, yeah, I messed up on, I forgot to click the share sound. My bad, my bad. All right, let me try this again. Oh, I lost it all. Let me close this. All right, and I'm going to then go to share.
And click the share sound in the
Share
bottom
and share
left,
sound, right, there we go.
and then click on your video.
Okay, here we go. Okay, and then we'll go with that. And let me start it from the beginning.
Voice control is a breakthrough feature
Got it?
that gives you
Yes.
full control of
Yep.
your
All right.
devices, comma, with just your voice, period. It's a whole new way to do everything you love, period. Like this. Correct love. 16. Open photos. Scroll up. Show numbers. 13. Click share. 3. Tim. Next field. Let's try this one today. Thumbs up emoji. Click send. Open maps. Show grid. Long press at 20. Open app switcher. 4. Tap share. Tap Tim. Tap send. Hey, good to see you. Open music. Turn up the volume.
All right, real quick, that is someone who's obviously used this before and has a good command of its use, and it's quite impressive on how easily and how well one can do that. So again, let me just open up for questions. There are, as you can see, any way you want to go, you can open up grids on that screen, either by number or by titles. And you can also number the items on your screen. Just say open your numbers and it will number all those, everything that's on your screen, and you just call the number off and off it goes. So questions?
Yeah, Don,
Sir.
I had my phone open to that voice, and what you said was being typed into my phone to control it. How do you stop people from rounding sounds, ambient sounds, getting recognized by your phone instead of your voice?
That is one of the things I found. Whoever wrote the algorithm for this system did an incredible job to almost be able to identify the ability for it to distinguish between background information and terms coming in just in general and the actual commands themselves. One of the videos, there are about 4 videos out there currently that will give you really quick explanations on even more detail than what we've got, what we just saw there with that first Apple one. There's another new Apple one out that's pretty good. And one of the gentlemen who just started explaining the voice control thing was talking about the commands and then told it to do the commands and didn't switch back from any modes. And it knew when he was telling it to do the commands and when he was talking about the commands. So the algorithm that they have written for that is, to me, very, very amazing. It seems to know when you're giving it commands and when there's stuff going on in the background. Just
Okay.
give it a try. And as I said, I use voice recognition on my system here a lot, and it is good as the drag and dictate system on my computer, and in some cases even better for the voice recognition and the ability to be able to edit. I used to have to edit the text on my phone when I would send messages to people, and to do it all by hand was as they say in Spanish, a dolor en la cola. And yeah, which is a pain somewhere. With this new ability that I've discovered now with this voice, I can go back and make the changes and the alterations, et cetera, et cetera. I am extremely impressed and amazed with what this voice control thing is able to do.
Don,
Thank you,
1
sir.
second, please. Irving, you had your hand raised first. Can I please, will you please unmute yourself? Irving? What is your question?
Morning, everybody. Yeah, my hand was raised. My question related to Ron's presentation.
Irving, we're past that.
not
You're gonna have to put
applicable
it in the chat, and your
to the
audio is very
current
bad.
discussion. So
Okay, Marcia, you had your hand raised? Is it?
My question was also for Ron, basically about why connecting the computer to the modem. I mean, if you have several laptops going, how do you connect all these things directly
enough.
to the modem instead of the internet?
Okay, Ron will stay around a little bit after, but can you please just, I put the email address for Ron up on the chat board, 69 Jane Place at gmail.com. If we don't get your question answered today because of time considerations, you can just email him directly. He'll be more than happy to explain or give you the answers.
And any last questions for Don?
Don, I tried using the Dragon setup several years ago with an elderly friend, and the main problem was learning all those special commands. It seems like that will be the main problem.
There is a vocabulary specifically for the Dragon dictate. It has gotten unmeasurably better from the last few years. They actually have bought almost every other voice recognition system out there. And again, if you're at the spot where you're not quite sure which command to use, just say, what can I say? And it will give you then a list right there besides what you're working with on what commands are available. And it is context sensitive. So if you're within a word processor, it's going to be one set of commands. If you're in a spreadsheet, it's going to be another set of commands. If you're in your mail, it's another set of commands. So it is very, very, it is learning the vocabulary is a challenge, but they've tried to make it pretty consistent. And one of the things I've noticed that with the voice control on the phone is very similar to the drag and dictate. And make sure that when you're activating something, you use the term tap, because that's what it uses almost consistently within the voice control on the phone. And by the way, this is also available on Android as well as iPhone.
And we posted a link to a video showing you how to use it on a Samsung phone. It uses Google Assistant, and so you can try that if you have an Android device. Other questions for Don? Because we're right at the end of our time.
Harry, could I answer Marcia's question?
Yes.
Marcia, the answer to your question is, first of all, you're going to plug your devices in, your computers, not to your modem, but to the router. And on the back of your router, you'll see different ports there. They're usually 3 or 4 open. You can plug them directly in there. If you don't, you can buy a switch. They're $30 and you can get a 20 port switch that just plugs in. And then you've got lots of places to plug things in. So remember, plugging in is always faster than wired.
Ron?
Go ahead.
Many of us here have Comcast, and we have provided routers that are combined routers.
Right.
Should we check with Comcast to see if there is an updated router that would be functioning better with some of the features you were talking about?
Absolutely. You know, you're going to pay a monthly fee for your router anyway. Rattle their chains, phone them up, tell them, look, you're switching to Verizon fixed base 5G, and they'll come over and they'll probably offer you the world. You'll get new equipment and everything. I'd rattle their chains for sure.
Ron, I've got a Norton Core router that was the first one that came out that had the virus protection, et cetera, built into the router. Has that technology extended out into other routers currently?
Well, the answer to that is sort of partly. Bob can partly. There are software that, for example, the Orbi mesh router system has a very sophisticated add-on software that you can pay for that monitors all your Internet of Things devices and looks for all sorts of security stuff, right? If you talk to Bob already, Avast has a box now and a service that you can plug into your network system that does the same thing, right? So there are different flavors of this as we move on in life. So there are lots of options for that. You have what was a very early sort of system, right? So there's lots more sophisticated stuff that's available for you now.
Okay. Everybody, I want to thank you so much for participating. If I did not get to talk to you, I apologize. We had 30 people here today. That's very encouraging. I want to thank Carol for helping me out, as always. And of course, Bob Gastisha and Ron. So our next meeting will be on Friday, March the 19th. Remember the time, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Remember to turn your clocks ahead 1 hour before you go to bed, depending on where you live. Before you go to bed on Saturday night. It's been my pleasure to see all of you looking so happy and healthy. After the meeting, I'm going to be preparing for my first Moderna shot, which I don't expect will be very difficult to handle.
Tomorrow.
Yep. Great. So,
Barry?
yes, Bob.
I posted a link to Avast Omni in the chat. You may want to take a look at it because that answers your question of how to protect all of your Internet of Things devices.
Thank you. Thank you.
You all see it there. It should be in the chat. I don't know if I can send the whole chat. Am I allowed? Can I purge the chat of things that are not related to?
Yes.
Okay. We hope to get this video up tonight, but it may not be until tomorrow. So keep checking the club site under YouTube, our YouTube channel, Music Man. You just go over to click the YouTube icon in the right-hand corner on our homepage. That will take you to directly to our YouTube channel. It is absolutely free and public. At that time, you should see the video posted, and I encourage you to please make comments below it. It always helps us to show our appreciation for our presenters. So I want to thank you all again for attending this very productive meeting. Wish you the best of health. Please remain safe. Until the next time, this is Barry Cowan, your non-resident president, saying, see ya, folks.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
So long.